Welcome back to the All Things Basketball podcast. I'm your host, Vic Lopez, as always, and apologize for the camera quality on this video, but I'm using the webcam, changing it up real quick. I am working at the time of this pod, so I just wanted to quickly talk about OKC's strong comeback win in Game 2. This should be a pretty quick pod slash video. I just wanted to kind of mention some of the things that really stood out to me in terms of changes that the Thunder made that were very visible. And that was obviously switching up the idea of Chet Holmgren on Nikola Jokic. They started off with Isaiah Hartenstein on Jokic, and I'm looking at NBA.com right now, just looking at the tracking numbers where they show the matchup data, and the majority of the time that a player spent defending Nikola Jokic was done by Isaiah Hartenstein. And the other noticeable thing when I was watching this game was Jalen Williams getting more minutes. I went to his Game 1 minutes, which I'm going to type again just to make sure I'm getting this right. But yeah, Game 1, 3 minutes, barely plays, right? And even then, he knocks down the only three that he got. So I was mentioning Jalen Williams, and when I'm talking about Jalen Williams, I'm talking about the center. A guy that I mentioned in the preview playoff pod as a very sleeper backup center that I think a lot of NBA teams would wish they had on their team. This is a guy that knows how to play with minimal opportunity. That is a serious skill in the league, and he is very young. I think he came into the draft at the same time as the other Jalen Williams. This is his third season, and for someone to already be playing like a vet, just super prepared, always ready to play, always just ready for his name to be called. And time again, he just shows that he is ready to produce when his name is called on. And in 12 minutes, he was 1 for 2 from the field, made his only shot, which was the three. 1 for 2 from three there. The 2 rebounds, the 2 assists, and like I said, 12 minutes. And not only that, but he was also guarding Nikola Jokic. And I'm going to show the field goal attempts from Jokic, some of the few ones that Jalen Williams was defending against that we can see on the NBA's website where we look at his field goal attempts. And you could just see, man, the battle, the battling. He went 1 for 5 against Jalen Williams, according to the tracking data. And I'm going to display some of those shots on this video. But, obviously majority of the time was Isaiah Hartenstein. Jalen Williams guarded Jokic second most per the tracking data. And that's because Chet Holmgren was mainly on Aaron Gordon. And that was a question that I had after that game where the Nuggets beat the Thunder in, horrible fashion. Because obviously the Thunder blew a Game 1 that they totally should have won. But Chet Holmgren on Aaron Gordon was something that I was concerned about, but at the same time, I was also thinking maybe that's what's going to have to happen because clearly he is just outmatched by Jokic. And Isaiah Hartenstein, just, bigger guy, stronger body. And then Jalen Williams, same kind of concept there when it comes to comparing him and Chet Holmgren trying to defend Jokic in the post, being more physical, and that then opens up Chet Holmgren's ability to provide more, production on offense. So we look at Chet Holmgren in this game, and let's compare what he did in Game 1 versus Game 2. So Game 1, we're looking at, still had a pretty efficient night. But 0 for 3 from 3. He had 6 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, 4 blocks. Huge, right? Like, as good of a game as a bad game can be, right? If you could even say something like that. So yeah, with those 12 points. But then in this game, didn't get as many field goal attempts, but 15 points, 2 for 3 from 3, just looked more comfortable, right? Just a lesser responsibility in terms of, hey, I don't have to guard this monster of a problem in Nikola Jokic. I can just, tag here and there, come off and plug on drives and maybe block a shot here and there, get some deflections, do the Chet Holmgren things, but then also make a shot. And I'll be a little more fresh, right? Like, because I'm not battling with Jokic, even though you could argue he is battling with Aaron Gordon. But, clearly Aaron Gordon, really bad game. And I expect him to respond game 3 at home. So we'll see what happens tonight. But yeah, just I like the concept of just letting Chet Holmgren be able to produce on offense comfortably enough and not have to demand him to guard Jokic on the other end. I think if that's going to be, if that was ever going to be the plan that Mark Daigneault stuck to, and props to him for switching away from that, if he was stuck to that, then everyone else has to show up tenfold, because going to be hard to expect Chet Holmgren to do all that and also give you offense. Spent a lot of time on the Chet stuff. I want to talk about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander real quick. I mean, obviously the man of the hour for this team. 11 for 13 from the field. Just almost a perfect game here. This was insane. 34 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds. He's perfect from the free throw line. He makes one of his 2 threes. And just when you watch him, I mentioned it after game 1, this is a guy that looks very comfortable in this matchup, and that's something that is a really good sign for the Thunder. When your best player can be your best player, production-wise, you're in a good place, because everything else kind of falls in line, right? Because things get complicated for teams in a playoff run when the best player isn't having a good game. Look at the Boston Celtics, right? This is a stacked team from an offensive standpoint and defensive standpoint, and Tatum doesn't have a good game, and neither does anyone else, and they lose. They blow the game, right? And again, Jason Tatum in game 2 chokes the game away, playing horribly, right? As well as Jaylen Brown, who's dealing with the knee pain. And then you have obviously Drew Holiday dealing with some injury issues. If Jason Tatum shows up maybe 10% more, they probably win both of those games. And that's why things kind of get a little tricky. But the Boston Celtics have won a championship with Jason Tatum not being his best version offensively. That's how stacked the Celtics are. And I didn't want to turn this into a Celtics conversation, but it's just to give an example of why it is important, even though it sounds stupid and simple, but why it's so important for the best player on your team to be the best player on your team game to game in a playoff series. Everything else feels familiar, right? You don't need Lou Dort to drop 20 points. You don't need Case and Wallace to give you 20. You don't, or Isaiah Joe. You don't need him to shoot perfectly, even though he did in this game, which just put on a clinic shooting wise, as well as Case and Wallace. Isaiah Joe, man, 4 for 4 from 3, perfect from the field, 14 points. You get Case and Wallace, 2 for 3 from 3. He's got those 8 points with the 2 steals, the 2 assists, doing the little things that he just always does. And then look, right after a game like that, it happens to be the game where, Caruso isn't needed, right? We're talking about a guy that just went off on the Nuggets and they lost. So, like I mentioned on the post game, the pod that I did after game 1, Alex Caruso, any other team that has a role player that does something that he did in game 1 and your team loses, you're down in the dumps and you feel like you probably can't come back from that, because you're not going to get a lot of production from a role player like that so often, if ever, in a series. And my counter to that ideology when it comes to the Thunder is they got guys that can do exactly what Caruso did and maybe do it at the same time, and you just never know who it's going to be. In this game, Lou Dort did not shoot the ball well. 2 for 9 from 3, 4 for 13 from the field. He made his 2 free throws, but what he does is on the defensive end in this game, and what he does in every game. But if you told me that after that horrible loss by the Thunder in game 1, that in game 2, Lou Dort's going to go 4 for 13 from the field. You're going to get 3 for 8 Chet Holmgren. You're going to get, 9 minutes from Caruso, if I'm telling you the future, and this guy's only going to score 2 points after what just happened in game 1, you're thinking, wow, these guys just fumbled the game. But then we look at the other guys. Aaron Wiggins, 4 for 8 from the field. You got AJ Mitchell, 4 for 7. And look, man, a lot of these numbers, obviously these are a blowout. These are blowout stats where guys just go in there and they get free run because it's just such a large deficit for the Nuggets. So, but it's just to show the type of production that this team really possesses. and it could just kill you game to game. Jalen Williams played better. I'm still waiting for the big Jalen Williams game. It definitely played better. He showed up in this game. He still does the things he's doing on defense, but I'm waiting for his blow up game, and he wasn't needed in this game. The defense was everything for him and for everyone else on this team. And then if we're talking about the Jokic part of it, 6 for 16 from the field. He actually fouls out, and I haven't done the research. I don't know how many games Jokic has fouled out of, but 6 turnovers, 6 fouls, 17 points. Like I said, not shooting it well. Definitely looked, tired, and maybe not tired, but obviously the Thunder just really got after it in this game too. Christian Brown wasn't having it. Jamal Murray, we're still waiting for him to have like a banger of a game. So far 2 games in, that hasn't really been the case. He shot it well tonight, but just not the Jamal Murray game that you wanted to see after the game 1, even though he scored over 20 in game 1. But, and then Russell Westbrook, he's like trying to do everything in this blowout, trying to like put the cape on and, help the Nuggets try to come back from a crazy deficit. But, obviously not enough. And of course, Michael Porter Jr., who I was talking about, one of the main concerns for the Nuggets after game 1 was this guy's playing through a bad shoulder injury and some serious pain. If that's going to be the type of production that he's going to give you the rest of the series, I don't like the Nuggets in the series. I picked OKC to win it in 6 before the series started. I still picked them to win it in 6 after they lost game 1, and it's really looking like they could do it in 5. If this is the kind of response that the Nuggets are going to have in game 3, the Thunder are not going to stop coming at them. I've talked about that many times. This is a team that does not stop. It's 48 minutes of excellent defense and hard work and fouls and physicality and just execution, at least on the defensive end. We know what happened on the offensive end, but this team, when they show up offensively, which they do most of the time, they're unstoppable. And I'm talking about the Thunder. And, Aaron Gordon, man, he's got to be great in this series. He's got to be great. Christian Brown has to be good. Jamal Murray has to be a star. They are depleted in terms of not just roster, but also production, right? Because Michael Porter Jr. dealing with that injury. He's 2 for 10 in this game. I think he was 1 for 8 in game 1. So clearly he is probably not going to be helping them much in this series. I was going to say Michael Malone, but it's just such a habit. David Adelman's going to have to make a tough decision. Do I bench Michael Porter Jr.? Because this is something that we saw, obviously, when Porter Jr. wasn't dealing with a shoulder injury at the time, but we have seen Michael Malone kind of pull him in the past when he's not having it. Obviously, this is a different scenario. He's playing through some serious pain, so you could knock his confidence away, right? And maybe his confidence is already shot because this dude's playing through pain. It sucks to play like that. So I don't know. But then, when you're looking down that bench, who, the Nuggets haven't relied on all year long because, let's be honest, it's not a good bench. Zeke Naji, Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, who I thought was going to be a good draft pick. Still too late to say, but, Conchar, Saric doesn't even play on this team. I don't even know if he's just injured for the year. DeAndre Jordan, they can't even really play him much. Julian Strawther, I thought, was going to be a secret weapon for this team. I made a video about him. I think it was last season. Or maybe that was this season. I don't even remember at this point. But, he was a guy that I was thinking, hey, he could do the KCP thing offensively, catch and shoot and off the dribble and playing downhill and getting to that floater. But it hasn't really happened for Julian Strawther. So, Peyton Watson, he may be the guy, but then you're thinking, okay, spacing-wise, if we put Peyton Watson in there for Michael Porter Jr., it's going to get a lot more difficult to space the floor for Jokic to get friendly post-ups. Now it's going to be easier to post up Jokic. It's going to be easier to post up Aaron Gordon or to guard them in the post when they get those touches inside, because the Thunder are the best team at collapsing and spraying out to the shooters and contesting and denying open threes. I mean, the Thunder are the best three-point defending team in the league. They've been that all year long. And, you know, that's their bread and butter. They're going to collapse collectively and then they're going to run out, like I said. So that's going to be more possible if Peyton Watson's out there. They're going to play the percentage game with him at the three-point line. And even though Aaron Gordon shot like 42% on the season from three, and he had a good shooting, he's shot it well. He's 2 for 3 in this game. I think he was 3 for 6 in the first game. I don't have those numbers in front of me. So he's clearly still been showing that has been a constant. But, you know, it's not a Michael Porter Jr. when you're thinking of potentially putting Peyton Watson in the starting lineup. Now, I will say from a production standpoint on both ends, he's going to be able to rebound. He's going to be able to play better defense. And yeah, he makes boneheaded plays because he's still a young player, but at least he's going to be able to give you 150%. Michael Porter Jr. is probably playing at like 40. So, you know, I'm really concerned about that. I'm glad I've stuck so strong on the Thunder because I truly believe in this team. I really think that this team is going to win a championship. And I think they're going to do it in convincing fashion. I think that, you know, it's very interesting to think that it could be the Minnesota Timberwolves in their way to get out of the conference finals. I don't think anyone thought Minnesota was going to potentially be there in the conference finals. A lot of people obviously have doubted the Thunder's ability to get through and out of the West. People are still doubting that as well. I don't know how you guys feel about the Nuggets at this point. At this point, I would sound like I'm contradicting myself when I say, you know, that the Nuggets are not going to respond because clearly the Thunder did. But when you think about the details of Game 1, like the Thunder were convincingly smacking the Nuggets around and they let go of the rope. And maybe Mark Daigneault shouldn't have been fouling all those times so early in the game, you know, preventing a non-Jokic offense from playing non-Jokic offense, right? Like, we could talk about that all day long, but I don't know. Like, the reason I don't think the Nuggets are going to win this series is because, one, they're depleted roster-wise. I mean, the Michael Porter Jr. thing is just a deep blow, right? Especially if this is really the production he's going to be having. And you're going to need Jokic to go 40 and 20 like he did in Game 1. If that's what is required to beat the Thunder in a series, and Jokic has to do it 3 more times, can he do it? Yes. Do I think he'll be able to do it? No. And if he does do it, do I think he's going to be able to win while going 40 and 20? That was also something you could question because they won it on a game-winning 3 on a historic Jokic game. So, you know, and the Thunder didn't even play well. So, and neither did Jamal Murray, and, you know, the Nuggets didn't shoot it well, and, you know, all that other stuff from Game 1. But proud of the Thunder. I can't wait to watch this game tonight. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I will catch you guys on the next one.